here on the channel where I talk about stuff, and usually I talk about things like marketing and trading, but today in this video I'm going to be talking about something much less fun, a lot more terrible, and it sucks. And that is war, and specifically the war that's happening right now between Israel and the Hezbollah, and obviously the war that's happening between Israel and Hamas that led to that war. Yes, there are negotiations for a ceasefire and a hostage deal between Israel and Hamas, but at the moment, those are not looking very promising, and there are a lot of reasons that the various prognosticators are saying it's not likely to happen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Personally, I hope that the people who are being held captive right now by the Hamas, the hostages in Gaza, are returned to Israel and that the violence ends. But of course, we're talking about a group of people in the Hamas that are ideologically bent on death and destruction, and they don't care what happens as long as they can destroy as many things as possible on their way to death. And that is literally their ideology, and they are literally, as a result, responsible for what is happening in that area of the world, and it is awful. And all of the people who are dying or being injured, who are not Hamas terrorists, all of that could be avoided if the Hamas would just do the thing that armies and military or terrorist forces do when they recognize the fact that they are losing, and that is they surrender, right? And they release whatever captives they have. But we're not talking about a normal group. They are ideologically bent on death and destruction. They are literally a death cult. And that is why their war, by the way, which is fully funded by Iran and Qatar, or Qatar, has been raging as long as it has, because they use the money that they get from them, that they smuggle into Gaza, what little money they have to smuggle into Gaza, because the people at the top of the Hamas keep 95 to 99% of it for themselves. And instead of, doling out the money to the 2 million Gazan civilians, those 5 leaders of Hamas basically keep all that money. And as a result, they are multi-billionaires, each and every one of them. And, hey, they're on the Forbes rich list, right? Wow, amazing. How'd they get there? Literally with blood money paid for from international organizations and countries around the world who send them aid money. And instead of building schools and hospitals and businesses and hotels and wonderful things they could have to make basically a paradise on earth, instead they have decided, as Hamas, the leading group there, right, they have decided to build tunnels and bombs and rockets and arm their Hamas fighters with as many guns and grenades and bombs as possible, and knives and everything else. And they use refugee camps as places to shoot rockets from. And people who say, well, where do you expect them to shoot from? How about out in the open? How about in a place that's designated for them to fight? But of course, they're cowards, and they will do anything to just attempt to kill Jews. And then when the bombs hit them back in retaliation, they'll cry uncle and say, look, you're attacking civilians. No, we're taking out the places you launched from, which happen to be in areas that had civilians in them. But once you use them for attacking, those are no longer protected places. And everybody there knows it, but they refuse to do the right thing. And the people with the power there refuse to allow people who want to get out of the way to get out of the way, because, again, they prefer that the world sees more dead babies or children or old people or even regular people who are, middle-aged or whatever, or young people getting killed by Israeli retaliation strikes, because that looks good for their propaganda, even though it's absolutely awful. And innocent people are being killed because the Hamas refuses to let them get out of the way, and anybody who tries, they literally mow them down. They kill them. And guess what? The Hezbollah, which is, of course, the world's largest and most powerful terrorist organization, which is fully funded by Iran and has bases in Lebanon and Syria, primarily in Lebanon, and controls most of South Lebanon, is also trying to attack and destroy Israel, and has been doing so since forever and a Wednesday, since multiple decades. And this morning, the Israeli Air Force knocked out thousands of targets across South Lebanon where the Hezbollah had rocket launchers ready to shoot what's estimated to be around 6,000 missiles towards Israel. They were supposedly going to try to shoot Tel Aviv and everything between Tel Aviv and the north of Israel. And at a higher rate, obviously a significantly higher rate than they've been doing the last year. They wanted to kind of have a massive volley of rockets. And we're talking about an organization that has reportedly about 150,000 rockets. So even if they shot 6,000 rockets today at Israel, they'd still have another 144,000 rockets, right? And who knows what that exact number is, but it's significant. And they can keep shooting hundreds of rockets a day at Israel, and Iran will keep shipping them hundreds of rockets a day, or many thousands per month, to keep them fully stocked. So it's not like Israel can just wipe out all their rockets and hope that they'll go, that they'll stop shooting. No, Iran will just keep sending them more as long as Iran has money to pay them to keep attacking us, because that keeps Iran relevant as far as they're concerned, which is nuts. What a way to stay relevant, right? Instead of building a great economy, just let's attack the Jews, let's attack Israel. They're just insane. You take their orders from God, and there's your result, right? When you have a sick ideology, and your ideology comes from some sick, demented view of a religion, then that's what you get, right? You got psychopaths in charge of armed forces, and you're going to have a terrible situation, and it's going to last a long time as long as those psychopaths are in charge. So what Israel has done is to knock out thousands of targets using more than 100 planes. And they did that this morning before sunrise. It was in the wee hours of the morning. And they knocked out about, probably around almost 6,000 rockets. And yes, Hezbollah managed to fire off a few hundred, rockets and drones towards Israel. Israel managed to knock down most of them with their Iron Domes defense system and whatever other means they use, without mentioning it. And the war is ongoing, and life during wartime is a bitch and a half, and it sucks. And I hope it ends soon for everybody in the region to be able to have more peaceful and more prosperous times again. Because to say that this has not taken a toll is just wrong. It absolutely has taken a toll on all sides. And you can say, well, Israel's killed far more Palestinians than Palestinians killed of Israelis on October 7th, and even since then. Yeah, sure. Well, when you start a war, there are consequences. When you're unprovoked to start a war, and you do it anyway, and the other side then comes around and kicks your ass, it's really ridiculous to complain about that, in my view. Like, if you start a war and you weren't provoked into it, and you just do it because you were afraid of losing political points, which Hamas was very much afraid of, because they knew if Saudi Arabia would make peace with Israel, it would significantly decrease Hamas's power. And Saudi Arabia was on the verge of doing that. And of course, as usual, Israel and the Saudis made the very common mistake, which is unbelievable that they haven't learned not to do it. Every time peace agreements are even hinted at ahead of time, a group like Hamas or some other group will come along and do everything it can to derail that. And it usually works, because it's not hard to throw a terrorist attack and cause a peace agreement to be derailed, at least temporarily. And that's exactly what we see happening in between Saudi Arabia and Israel right now, is the expected peace agreement that might have happened at the end of 2023 or in Q4 23 at some point. Never happened, because Hamas successfully derailed that entire thing when they attacked Israel, and then Israel began retaliating as they had to in order to dismantle the Hamas in Gaza and do everything it could to get its hostages back. Am I saying that I like seeing people die in Gaza? No, I don't like seeing people die in Gaza. I think it's awful and I would like it to end immediately. But at the same time, do I hold Israel responsible for launching that war? No, Hamas launched that war and they bragged about it and they kept saying they would do it again and again and again. And to make the comparison between Israel and the Hamas just because of the number of people killed is insane. Okay? Yeah, you can say that a lot more Palestinians have been killed because of Israeli retaliatory strikes than Palestinians killed Israelis on October 7th, but that doesn't mean anything, right? What matters is the intent. It is the intent of Hamas to keep attacking Israel until Israel doesn't exist and they kill every Israeli and every Jew in Israel and around the world. That is literally in their charter, okay? If you don't see the difference between that and self defense, I don't know what to tell you other than you should probably learn a thing and stop drinking so much of the propaganda Kool-Aid that you are being told and sold by people who believe that the destruction of Israel is somehow a good thing. It's insane. What, killing every Jew is a good thing? Really? So how about all the other minority groups in the world or non-minority groups in the world that the Muslims happen to not like? Do you realize that after they finish off with Israel, if they ever, God forbid, accomplish that, what are they going to do next? They're going to Europe and they're going to the United States. Those are their bigger targets. That is Iran's bigger target, and therefore it's Hamas's bigger target. They're all connected. And if you don't understand that, again, learn a thing. But this war is terrible and is taking a toll on all sides. And I'm not going to get into all the details now. I'm just going to end it here and tell you that, and just, I'll go into more detail later where I write and also possibly on some videos here. Do I talk just to hear myself? No, I don't talk just to hear myself. I talk to spread my opinions and thoughts about what's happening on topics that I happen to know very well. If you don't like what I'm saying, that's fine. But, I'm speaking from my knowledge of the world and of the particular region in question and of the wars in question. And that is not a small amount. I studied this, I've lived it, I've learned it, I have been involved in much of it. And yeah, I would like to see peace and prosperity take hold and be something that all people in the region benefit from. So, that said, peace and love, stay safe. See you on the next one. Cheers.